People who take care of Cincinnati's oldest African-American cemetery are trying to solve a nasty problem. Sewage is seeping up from the ground. And as Local 12's Brad Underwood explains, the problem is nearly a year old and still no one can pinpoint the source.
United American Cemetery is the final resting place for dozens of black historical figures going all the way back to the mid-1800s.
Civil War veterans that fought on the Union side. There are civic leaders, business leaders, I believe the first black senator.
The historical site is on the National Registry list, but sadly, for about a year, it's been closed to families and visitors.
The United American Cemetery is a historic African-American burial ground. It was founded in 1883, but includes many graves moved from an earlier cemetery in Avondale, so the earliest legible tombstone is from 1832. The grounds were laid out by prominent landscape architect Adolph Strauch, who also designed Spring Grove Cemetery. This is the resting place of Underground Railroad figures, as well as writers, politicians, business people, artists, civil rights leaders, and many military veterans, including at least 55 African-American veterans of the Civil War. By the middle of the 20th century, the cemetery became increasingly neglected. A group of plot owners sued the Cemetery Association in 1956. The courts appointed a new board to operate the cemetery, but the board was unable to convince plot owners to pay for perpetual care, which would generate funds for ongoing cemetery maintenance. In 1968, the cemetery was transferred to Union Baptist Church. The cemetery was founded by the United Colored American Association, but by 1968, the original Cemetery Association no longer existed, and at the request of Councilman Charles P. Taft, ownership was transferred to the Union Baptist Church. Prominent persons buried in the United American Cemetery include William H. Beckley, who lived from 1817 to 1880. He was an Underground Railroad conductor. John Isom Games, who lived from 1821 to 1859. He was an abolitionist. Priscilla Jane Thompson, who lived from 1871 to 1942. She was a poet and author. Frank A. B. Hall, who lived from 1870 to 1934. He was the first African American elected to Cincinnati City Council. Horace Sudduth, who lived from 1898 to 1957. He was a businessman and owner of Cincinnati's Mancy Hotel. Janine Jackson Dehart, who lived from 1855 to 1910. She was a star of Nashville's Fisk Jubilee Singers. Isaac Nelson Ross, who was a bishop in the African Methodist Episcopal denomination. Irvine Garland Penn, who lived from 1866 to 1930. He was a journalist. Phoebe Boots Allen, who was a deaconess in the AME Church and pioneering social worker. Henry Ellis, who lived from 1846 to 1914. He was a Civil War corporal in the 54th Massachusetts Glory Regiment. And Charles H. Thompson, who lived from 1835 to 1902, was an early voting rights advocate and Episcopal priest. Just walking back here and just seeing all the graves that are left not untouched, but just not being taken care of anymore. And it's all of them. There's a lot. And it's like whole families buried here from like the 1920s when they passed, or even like earlier than that, in the 1900s. It's just crazy. I mean, yeah, there's all kinds of graves back here that are, may not be able to know what dates they were alive. You can barely see the family names, but they're all over the place over here. And yeah, like this one, you can barely see the names of the people who passed away because of it not being taken care of. And just all over the place. It's crazy. I mean, there are people, I guess, that still visit here because there are some newer stuff around, but majority of these graves, they're all abandoned. Just maybe it's because there's no one left to take care of them, or no family members in their line to take care of these. But looks like there are a few people that still come to this grave site. Maybe they're the loved ones buried here. Who knows? But yeah, there are just a lot of gravestones that are just destroyed, or like just, yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. Unfortunately, despite a dedicated team of volunteers and donations, the cemetery has been under-resourced and has faced challenges for years. Recently, flooding has eroded gravestones, and the cemetery is closed to the public due to the fecal matter contamination. Nationally, it is all too common for African American cultural and heritage sites to be disregarded, degraded, and allowed to diminish over time, which is why at the federal level, Senator Sherrod Brown has introduced a bill to provide the resources needed to upkeep African American cemeteries. The folks buried here are people's loved ones, parents, siblings, cousins, children, friends. Not only are members of the community prevented from seeing the grave sites of their loved ones, but they also cannot bury loved ones in it now, as it's a public health hazard. Union Baptist Church is suing Fifth Third Bank, saying its Madisonville building causes flooding in Ohio's oldest black cemetery and is therefore desecrating the graves there. After it rains, there are graves underwater for days, said John Stillpass, a lawyer representing Union Baptist Church, Cincinnati's oldest black church. The Enquirer reported in 2020 on the efforts to restore the cemetery. Civil rights leaders, abolitionists, poets, pastors, soldiers, and even Cincinnati's first black Cincinnati city councilman are buried there, the lawsuit states.